This is a good one. It's for the hips. So we're gonna spend a lot of time on the mat today. We'll start with breathing. So get your little shaka sign here. This is the measuring stick hands. Pinkies somewhere on the pelvis, thumbs on the ribs. Going for those little bony nubs there. Just try to, every time you breathe, instead of letting the belly out, engage and build on top of that a little bit more. So you're inhaling out through the mouth, keeping all that rib expansion. Almost like you're pumping up your lungs like an air mattress. Get more air in and more. You should feel that in a lot of those spinal muscles, especially these guys that are always pulling your spine down. This mat's gonna stick to my feet the whole time. You guys are smarter than me going barefoot or going with the shoes. So once you feel like you got enough decompression, try to push your weight back a little bit. So you're engaged. First you're pulling the hips in. This is what we call anchoring. You're grabbing the ground, squeezing the hips in, and then we're engaging this. Because a lot of us like to do this step first, right? So we got to flip that on its head and grab the ground, then push the weight back into extension. Almost like you're pushing your whole spine as one unit back. You feel your hips work a little bit when you do that? So hold that. And we're gonna, almost like we're doing a forward fold, but just keep all that tension in your hips the whole time and keep your spine really stiff. Just slide down your legs. Really slow. You can do it with your breaths if you want, so a little deeper if you're struggling. How you doing there, Melcon? A little easier this time? No. You'll get there. And it's okay to bend at the spine a little bit to get down if you need to. Get down to the bottom here. Just try not to round as much. Same goes with the rest of your workouts. Try to start the motion from your hips, not from your low back. So once you're down there on the ground, you can just walk yourself into a kneeling position, where we're gonna tuck the toes underneath. So we can almost take that decompression stance here in that kneeling position. Same thing, we're instead of resting, we're pushing off, even with your toes and your knees, squeezing those hips in. Feel that? Good position there. So what we're gonna do here is gonna take both the arms right here into this position. So you're squeezing those elbows in. And you're just keeping it right along your nose, trying to bring your elbows up to the level of your nose. And then going down. We're gonna do 7 of these. You're good, you can time it with your breath. Seven's a good number, right, Melcon? It's a holy number. And then on your 8th, you're gonna bring it up as high as you can or hold. And you're gonna do a decompression breath here. As you breathe out, you push a little deeper into that till you get that shaky point. Do that 2 more times. Breathe in, exhale, and push the hands up even a little higher. And 1 more. Good, relax. Feel that in those shoulders? Okay, now we're gonna have some hip fun. Take your left one out. Keep the heel down. You can start here if you need to get your balance. To lock yourself into the hip hinge first, that's okay, because then we're gonna push off the heel in a second. So you're taking the hands, thumbs pretty much at your hips. When I'm here, I always like to squeeze my hips into the socket, because I don't want to lose that. If you feel like you're falling over, that's a good sign. It's usually mean you're decompressing. So as we trace upwards, get your elbows really high. Don't raise your shoulders, we're raising the elbows. This is what we call a sphere of tension, the fingertips just grabbing each other. Pushing overhead. As I push overhead, I push off that front heel. So your foot comes into a dorsiflexion, pushes your weight back. And again, it's pushing your whole spine as one unit backwards as you dorsiflex. And then your back foot has to fire in the opposite direction. It's almost like they're scissoring, pulling the ground in, lifting upwards. almost like opposite of yoga. Yoga, we're trying to get deeper. Here, we're trying to lift out of this position. All right, bring them down. Let's try one more time. So as you're coming up, you're pushing off your toes. And at the end, you're really gonna feel it. Try to hold 3 deep breaths there. You should feel this guy a lot. And relax. Let's switch to the other side. Got that back toe tucked there, Milcon. A little higher in the shoes, maybe. Generally, these exercises will be harder when you're barefoot. So when you're at home, you can try them barefoot. Because the whole idea is with anchoring, it's challenging the feet. Getting those 3 arches of the feet to work a little bit more. That's what really helps you push up and resist gravity more. So all these should be training you for life. It's the little things in life, like breathing and walking, that can either break us down or really build us up, make us stronger. So we're tracing. That's what I call the hip hugger. If you see me do this, I'm squeezing in. It almost pulls my shoulders apart. At the same time, I'm pushing my hips inwards. That's that unraveling, because we like to be here, and our hips like to turn out, so they move opposite, like a door hinge. So you're flipping that. And then you're tracing upwards. You know, as soon as you did it, you're like, oh wow, it's harder. Because we're just used to being in that compressed state. And then now you're putting all that weight on your spine, and your spine's like, hey, I'm not used to doing this stuff. But it's good, because we're getting a lot of work done in a short amount of time. So I'm really pushing off that. You can see that little push I'm doing there? It's subtle. That really helps challenge that spine, shifting your weight backwards, which is what I feel most people need more of in just walking, staying position, is pushing the whole spine back together. A lot of us, either the head is forward, but actually the majority of us will push our head back, but the hips don't come with it. So here you're starting from the hips, you're pushing the hip back with your heel, everything's getting driven back. All right, relax. Enough of that one, right? Back to the kneeling position. So you might be more familiar with this one. This is child's pose, but we're gonna try to, instead of bending at the spine, from the hips. So first, retraining your hips is about locking them into place, doing this, and then trying to get that motion all from the hips, keeping your spine pretty straight. Not gonna be able to get as deep as you would in yoga, but here, once you're anchored with your hands, you can crawl, but at the same time push your hips back. It's almost like you're pulling down on your tailbone, but your hands are anchored, pulling up on your spine. So everything in the middle is getting stretched, getting challenged. And again, you can kind of, each time you exhale, a little deeper into it. Don't let your head bow too much there, Melcon. Try to think about the extension. Since we got our hips locked, think about pulling your head up and back. See the difference between this and that? And then you're sinking in at the hips. You feel a lot of tension in those hips, keeping them squeezed. So here's a little fun one. We've done this one before, Melcon. It's the gorilla lift. We're gonna do it in this position. So you're taking your right hand, palm up, pushing your hips back as you raise to that little shaky point. Switch sides. There's a guy called Nathan Maxwell, and his whole area of study is exercises that look a lot like what children do when they're younger. When you're younger, that's what helps develop your spinal curves. So this is similar to what he calls the baby rock, where he just rocks back and forth, which helps activate your hip hinge and helps develop the cross crawl using your left arm, right arm, like you're walking. It's a cross crawl, or it should be. A lot of us don't do that. Most of us, our arms don't even really move when we walk. But the more we're in a hinge hip, or in a hinge hip position, and we're trying to raise our arm now, your spine is locked, you'll notice it's hard to raise that arm because your spine wants to help, but it can't. All right, take your left hip, Almost pigeon pose. We're bringing that knee across. And you can sink in a little bit, try to get the stretch, but we're actually going to push out of it at the end here. So we're just getting into the hip where you feel that stretch the outside of your hip. Fingertips drive up on your back toe, and even with the knee that's on the ground. This is the big sciatic pinching muscle here, the piriformis. You're stretching other things like your glute. But now we're making it work in a stretch position, and that's actually the best thing for it. It's an active stretch, right? So not just stretching, but putting it in that eccentric position and then making it work. So you're pushing your knee into the ground, also strengthening your spine, which is really good. All right, sink a little bit more into the stretch now. You can go down to your elbows. And we'll stretch it one more time, actively coming up top, pushing off with the knee. And even when I'm stretching, I try to keep a straighter spine, because you'll notice you'll feel the stretch a lot earlier. If I'm being lazy about it, I have to get like all the way down there just to feel that stretch. And I can actually feel that stretch even more here when I'm pressing than when I'm stretching. Switch sides. Taking the right knee across the body. You can put your back knee down there, Melcon. It's fine. And just bring your right knee a little more midline so it's crossing over. Your body will let you know when you're stretching it. Yeah, there you go. Pressing up off actively. Whole spine coming back as one unit. And then stretch a little deeper down to the elbows. Let your body weight stretch it now. Then press off one more time. You want to push off with enough force that it's almost, you get to that shaky point. If you're making a muscle work in a stretch position, that's when you usually will get a little shake. All right, back to plank. It won't make you hold it though. Let's go down to our knees. Elbows out eye level. This is what we call the 8-point plank. It looks like a half plank, but since the elbows are so far forward, it actually makes it very challenging. So when we lift up from the hips, or we're lifting the whole spine together like that. Try not to let your head come back too much either. It's the whole spine right up. If you can, hold it for 7 breaths. If you can't, just do a couple reps. And you'll find that this breathing while holding the position, what we call the decompression breath, is really the hardest part of these exercises. Forcing that diaphragm to work, expanding everything while you're holding that position is the tough part. You can also do the fingertips here, which really helps strengthen those wrists. Is that tough?
Yes.
Well, tougher than it looks, right? Yes. If you want to make it harder, you go out even farther. And then it's really tough to get up. Don't want it hard. You want a little hard. Like with a plank, that's when you might get a little lazy. Even if you're trying to have good form, it's so hard you might notice your hips will start dropping. And that's it. And this one, there's no way to cheat since you're anchored with all 8 points on the ground. Feet are 2, knees are 4, 6, 8 with the hands. Spine lifting is 1 unit. Let's try another one here while we're down. So now keep your big toes together, knees on the ground, so you're still pushing off the ground with your knees. Coming in, stretching the pecs. And then going overhead into that sphere of tension, pushing off like that. You should feel those muscles in your back really stretching. Yep. I've been trying to get a couple videos of what's happening in the back. It is really interesting to see the upper traps and then the erectors all getting stretched those muscles that are chronically compressing your spine all day long. Let's do that one more time. Pulling back, almost done, guys. Pushing up, make it hard, make it worth the time. And just breathe a few times here. Trying to raise a little deeper. Pulling your arms more back behind your head. It's like an angry Superman exercise. I notice as my knees want to lift off the ground too, so try to keep those down. As you do more arms, the whole legs want to come up. It's actually harder to keep the knees down with the feet in the air. All right, so now let's walk back into a flat foot squat if you can. But we're gonna raise the arms, so that pushes your weight back. And we're gonna end with this. So you're scooping and lifting, pushing your whole weight back. So your whole spine, one unit. And this is just one thing I think more people should do. Flat foot squat every day. Only hold it for 7 breaths here, but if you can make it to a minute, that's really good. Okay, push out of it nice and slow. If you notice your weight's back more, it actually saves your knees. You shouldn't feel all your weight in your knees. You should feel your weight in your hips. You're done. Okay. Any questions on those? A lot of new ones. The 8-point plank I really like because it's just hard to mess up. Because even like doing the founder exercise is actually tough. There's a lot of different moving parts. It looks easy. But you don't really have to work on the decompression stance as much with that 8-point plank. It's just built into it. It's hard to cheat.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Still getting the tingles? Or did that help?
I had them a little bit, and right now they're good.
All right. Maybe we did some good stuff.
It's weird how unexpected. Now I would to be like a workout.
It is.
Not out here long. This is probably less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I can feel it. Definitely the core.
Yeah. So you do this every morning, you're really setting yourself up right because your body's going to move differently after this. Now that you've activated those hips more, they're going to get underneath you. And then that helps your spine, creates a good foundation platform for your spine to lift off. So as those hips start coming forward, they turn out. And then we try to activate our spine, but we can't because the pelvis is out of position. And even the feet too. You'll notice these are a lot harder with the feet. So try barefoot at home.